Hi, I'm Georgie from the Office for Young People, and I'm joined with Phil and with Bella. Today we're going to be having a chat about the Safeguarding Guidance document, specifically in relation to empowerment. Phil, can you talk us through empowerment?
Yeah, absolutely, Georgie. So empowerment is a real fundamental belief for us around how do we actually achieve our vision statement of having young people who are inspired. If we don't actually have children and young people who feel safe, they can't feel empowered, and if they can't be empowered, they're never going to be inspired. So it's a real core component of what the Y does. So in terms of safeguarding and empowerment, what we really look at is teaching children and young people to have a voice, and also for us to listen as adults, but also about how children and young people can be safe. And that's the fundamental rights which we're looking at in terms of empowerment.
Yeah, right. So would you say empowerment is quite foundational to the entire framework?
Yeah, good question. Absolutely. It really is, I suppose, the fundamental piece that if you look at, lots of people know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you're trying to get to that self-actualization. And again, that's what the empowerment piece looks like, without being safe, which is right at the bottom of that rung. If you're not feeling safe, you can't be empowered. So to be safe, we need children and young people to be empowered, and absolutely it forms a core part, I suppose, of our safeguarding framework.
Great. So Phil, in terms of empowerment for our frontline Y staff, thank you Bella for the kisses, what does that look like at a frontline level?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously it will look different to the different sectors we work with. So empowerment really for, say, our early years and maybe our OSHs is teaching children and young people about body safety, making sure they have a voice, making sure they actually can communicate about issues which are affecting them, and the ways that they can be safe. So for example, in an early years, you might have, lots of you would have seen this as your safety hand, where you put on your safety hand 5 key people you can contact if you're worried or concerned. So it might be your parent, it might be your teacher, it might be your OSH worker, for example. So that's a way we can do it in those earlier years. For young people, so when we're looking sort of 12 above, you might find different things. So empowering children and young people at this age would be really in our sport rec potentially and our youth services, where we will start talking really about stuff like sexual consent, empowering them to understand the law and understand what consent means, understanding about their own rights. Other pieces we would look at is empowering children and young people to know about drugs and alcohol use and how they can stay safe around domestic abuse and family violence and some of those things. So safety plans, which we get with some young people, will be given these from youth services around how do you be and stay safe. So there's just some of the examples we've used, and this is another one. Just like to show Phil, obviously, you probably can't see too much, but it's all within the guidance document, which is available for you all. SNAKE, which is an Indigenous organisation, creates some really good resources around how do we empower children and young people who are identified as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, and about the United Nations Convention for the Rights of the Child. And one of the key stuff they've got here is their right to grow up with family and community, and they've really highlighted that. So these are all the sort of core components which make up empowerment. And I suppose, Georgie, not giving you a question back, but reflecting that you probably, when you felt empowered yourself, you probably felt like you can stand up and you feel strong and valid, and you can really just enjoy and live life to the best of it. But there's probably been times where you've not felt empowered because of someone or some way someone's acted, and we've all kind of been there and experienced that. So I suppose that's probably the personal link to it, is to identify if you've ever felt disempowered, how that would then feel for a child or young person.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like empowerment is very closely linked to education. I mean, I know for me personally, when I learn, what my rights are, that's kind of a stepping stone to getting towards empowerment. So it's interesting how it's intertwined.
Absolutely.
So in terms of empowerment, we've talked through what this looks like for our frontline staff and for young people, from early ages all the way up. Have you got any other tips just in general when considering empowerment, particularly from a safeguarding lens?
A couple really, which would be, we always, when we come into work, we're taught about how we're expected to behave, but with children and young people, they're usually told how to behave. So what's be quite nice and a great tip you can do is when kids come into your service or young people, get them to come up with their ground rules or their learning agreement of, we'll behave like this, and what will be the sanction as such if we don't behave. So if we turn up late, what might be the consequence of that? Because that empowers children and young people to know of their own rights, their own responsibilities, and actually it's more likely they'll enforce it themselves. So there's a really good one, rather than saying this is how we expect you to behave, actually get them involved with it. Get them to listen to and have a voice in this aspect.
That's a great tip. Yeah, that's great.
And then the only other one I'd say is, which we've seen, and you've probably all seen, is our Stay Safe, Tell Someone program, which is, we did the research last year, which is around if you see something, hear something, or feel something, that you should tell someone. And I'd really encourage all Ys to make sure they engage with children, young people, and say to them, if you see, hear, or feel anything in your life which makes you feel worried, unsafe, tell someone, and they can always tell someone at the Y. And the more we get children, young people feeling safe to tell people about things which scare them or worry them, the better society we'll create.
So interesting. I think, the more you have those conversations, the more individuals will feel empowered to speak up. It's so important and so intertwined in, as you said, rights, human rights. Yeah, really interesting. Great, well that's all been really helpful, Phil. Thanks so much for sharing. I think empowerment, absolutely is fundamental and foundational indeed to this safeguarding guidance document, and really helpful to chat it through.
Brilliant. Thanks Georgia. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Phil, too.